give you the latest updates on the Israeli front, the latest statements and what they're talking about. What's more interesting?
I'm not so well. I mean, I can probably talk to either one of those. Although I haven't followed, the Taylor Green and Tucker, but I know exactly what you're talking about because I'm in their same boat. I mean, I'm like a average person who is sympathetic to their argument and very, very unhappy with the Republican Party. So,
and I personally want to talk about the statements coming out of Israel. My producer wants me to talk about MTG and Tucker. I want to talk about that because I'm expecting the rhetoric to calm down. Ben Gvir 2 days ago was talking about diplomacy doesn't work with Iran and Lebanon. You got to bomb them, then bomb them again, then bomb them again. And the same it says about Iran, and he says it's the same with Hezbollah. You just got to bomb them and keep bombing them. And today he talks about Hezbollah. He doesn't believe there's a difference between Hezbollah and Lebanon. Everyone talks about how Lebanon's against Hezbollah. He's like, he doesn't buy that. And then you have, so this is Ben Gvir today. Let me try to actually find a statement. And then he makes a statement. I can't find the one about Lebanon, not differentiating between Hezbollah and Lebanon. But then he makes a statement saying the moment is approaching when Israel must understand that it may need to act alone against this nuclear threat. So I'm in the belief that Israel will become less aggressive without American support. Jonathan Conricus, who was on my show, was saying how Israel cannot go to war with Iran, for example, or maintain a multi-front war without American support.
That's right.
So out of pragmatic necessity, Israel will have to change its strategy and move more towards diplomacy. But Ben Gvir seems to be quadrupling down on war and more war. And also, he's not alone. The opposition leader of Netanyahu said something similar as well today. He says he's criticizing Netanyahu. Let me see if I have it here. Former Israeli Prime Minister, so Naftali Bennett continues to attack Netanyahu for ordering the IDF to respect the US-Iran ceasefire in Lebanon. Quote, I spoke until 2 a.m. with soldiers and commanders currently in Lebanon, all who left within the last 24 hours. And these are the facts from the ground. Soldiers can see Hezbollah operatives establishing positions, repairing infrastructure, rearming, and resuming operations. Yet our troops are not allowed to open fire on them. They see operatives observing IDF soldiers with binoculars, and they are not permitted to shoot. Decisions that were once made by a company commander on the ground now require approval from a major general. Because of this bureaucracy, even when a fighter is seen running from place to place carrying a shoulder-fired missile, he is not eliminated because when the time approval arrives, he has already disappeared. The enemy understands these restrictions and is exploiting them to rapidly rebuild its presence, putting our soldiers' lives at risk. Israeli Air Force aircraft have completely stopped operating. There have been incidents involving wounded soldiers that required evacuation under heavy covering fire. Massive fire support was not used during those evacuations, resulting in harm to our troops. When Netanyahu and Katz stated at 11 p.m. last night that the IDF has freedom of action in Lebanon, they did not tell the truth. That is not correct. The truth is that our sons in Lebanon have their hands tied. This is a situation on the ground right now. This is negligence. You cannot send our troops, our sons, to face Hezbollah fighters with their hands tied. Untie the hands of our soldiers now, this very moment. So you got Naftali Bennett criticizing the restraint of Netanyahu and asking for the hands to be, what do you say, untied or untied.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably a couple things going on there. I mean, one is Naftali Bennett's campaign and those who are going to unseat Netanyahu, which probably will happen. Their campaign is every war that he has got us into in the name of security, he's lost. Didn't get Hamas, didn't get Hezbollah. Iran now has got some deal that they don't like. Everything he talks about really doesn't gain any benefit to Israelis. He is a big talker and he's a terrible actor. So this is their campaign against him, to point out his failures. And of course, you can see this in Netanyahu's own speeches, where he is totally emphasizing the great achievements in security that he has overseen. So they're debating this. So on the one hand, this is domestic consumption type stuff to frame Netanyahu as a loser who doesn't trust the IDF to defend the country, won't allow him to, whatever. But On the other hand, what Naftali Bennett is saying is not true. Okay, it's not true. I'm sure that maybe there is bureaucracy and there's some decisions, and certainly now because the MOU is signed, there's some concern about what Trump is demanding and whatever. There's probably some confusion. But the idea, first off, is not a very competent army. Okay, it's not competent, not well trained. I mean, you look at these kids that are being killed. They're like 19, 20, 21, 22. They're lower ranking officers out there fighting a ground war. With Hezbollah is terrorist, but I mean it's kind of an asymmetric thing. It's a dangerous type of war, and it's the kind of war that if you can live through it and get to be into your 30s, you're going to really understand how to do it. But meanwhile, it chews up 19, 20, and 21-year-olds. Okay, chews them up. So that's what's happening to the IDF. They're poorly trained. They're also poorly led. They also are not having their hands tied, apparently, because in Gaza and in Libya, they're shooting up all kinds of people and cars and parked cars, and they're taking buildings down with people. They're bombing. They're still very good at shooting the remaining journalists, in both fronts, in both the Lebanon and in Gaza. They're still killing journalists. They're still shooting children in the head. So that tells me that their hands are not tied. So I think what Naftali Bennett is not wanting to address is what kind of what your other guest, I forget his name, you told me, it sounds like a Greek name, the guy that you were just mentioning who you spoke with, who said Israel could not fight by themselves.
Jonathan Conricus.
Conricus, okay. So what Jonathan said about the limitations of the Israeli army, that is okay. That is, I mean, he knows what he's talking about, but I think other observers can even just look at the numbers and see that Israel has limited capability to do all the things that it wants to do by itself. So clearly they're going to have to choose the things that they want to do. But right now there's an election going on. So Naftali Bennett is like, I'm going to protect Israel and I'm going to protect our soldiers, and our soldiers are going to be the best soldiers in the world. Like they tell them they are right now. But the world knows that they're not. This is the problem. I mean, just like the U.S. military has kind of been, shown to be, we didn't protect our bases. We didn't protect our allies. We couldn't run a blockade. Couldn't get close enough in to run a blockade. Couldn't get our airplanes close enough that didn't need like 2 or 3 refuelings just to go and drop a bomb and return to base. This all illustrates weakness. It illustrates logistical weakness and all kinds of things of the American side. So just like the war has demonstrated American limitations in expeditionary war, it's also demonstrated Israeli weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And in an election year, you can't run on weakness, right? So you have to say, I'm going to do more. So I think some of this language is geared towards the domestic, the elections that are coming up and that kind of thing.